AI, I mean, it's one of the most world-changing technologies out there. We all get that. But the real question, the one that really matters, is who actually gets to build it? Who's shaping its values, its priorities, its code? This is so, so important. So let's dive in, because the answer, well, it might just surprise you. Yeah, this quote right here from Yoshua Bengio, he's literally one of the godfathers of modern AI. It just hits the nail on the head. He's pointing to this huge tension at the very core of AI, power, and it's all getting concentrated in just a few places. And believe me, this isn't some academic debate. It has real, tangible consequences for every single one of us. Okay, so that leads us right to the big question, doesn't it? Who is shaping the future of AI? Well, to figure this out, we're going to play detective. We're going to follow the clues from this massive study that looked at, get this, over 171,000 research papers. And the whole story, it all kicks off with one single game-changing moment. And that moment, it was back in 2012, a year that just sent a massive shockwave through the entire world of computer science. It completely rewrote the rules for how AI research gets done. The setting was this thing called the ImageNet Challenge. It's this yearly competition to see whose AI is the best at recognizing stuff in pictures. But in 2012, one team didn't just win. They just demolished the competition. I mean, the organizers themselves were stunned, calling it an unexpected outcome. And just like that, boom, an overnight revolution. So you can basically think of AI history as being split into two different eras, before 2012 and after 2012. Before, progress was, well, it was predictable. It followed Moore's law, with compute doubling every couple of years. It was all about who had the smartest ideas, the cleverest algorithms. But then came 2012. The winning model used these specialized chips, GPUs, and it totally unleashed deep learning. And then everything changed. We entered what you could call the age of compute. And the pace? It just went into hyperdrive. We're talking compute doubling not every 2 years, but every 3.4 months. That's just an insane acceleration. So you gotta wonder, what did this huge shift actually do to the world of AI research? Like, who won and who lost? This is where the study gets really, really interesting. To figure out the real impact, the researchers had to do something pretty clever. They had to compare our world to a world where that 2012 revolution just never happened. They basically created a what-if timeline. Think of it like a digital twin of the AI world, one that shows what would have happened if that big GPU breakthrough in 2012 never occurred. And by putting our reality side by side with this what-if world, they could see exactly what changed. It's a brilliant way to measure the true impact. And the results? Whoa, they were incredibly clear. So here's clue number one. After 2012, the big tech firms, they started pumping out an average of 44 additional research papers every single year. Way more than the what-if timeline predicted. They just exploded onto the scene. But here's the flip side of that coin. For your mid-tier universities, the exact opposite happened. Their output dropped. They were publishing 14 times fewer papers a year than they should have been. So while one group was taking off like a rocket, another was getting left in the dust. And this chart really just lays it all out, plain and simple. What the data shows is what the researchers call a great divergence. After 2012, you've got big tech and the super elite, super rich universities just pulling way ahead of everybody else. Meanwhile, the mid-tier and lower-tier schools, their slice of the pie started to shrink. A real split. So the big question is, why? Right? What was it about that moment in 2012 that created this massive split, this new world of haves and have-nots in AI research? Well, the answer, the culprit, if you want to call it that, it all comes down to one single word. A word that has basically become the new gold in the world of AI. And that word is compute. Yep, this is what the paper calls the compute divide. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It's the growing gap between the folks who have access to the massive, super specialized, and wildly expensive computing power you need for cutting-edge AI, and, well, everyone else who doesn't. Look, here's the bottom line. Before 2012, AI research was basically a battle of brains. Everyone was working with more or less the same standard equipment, so the best idea, the best algorithm, would win. But after 2012, it became a battle of resources, a battle of bucks. If you had access to more compute, you had a huge, almost unfair advantage. And who has those kinds of resources? You guessed it, the big tech companies. I mean, we're talking about the ability to spend billions of dollars building giant data centers. They can even design their own custom chips just for AI. Your average university, or even a well-funded one, just can't keep up with that kind of spending. And what the study found is that these firms use the kind of one-two punch to really solidify their lead. First, they just started doing way more research completely in-house. But the second punch was even more powerful. They teamed up with the top-tier universities. They created these super alliances, combining their massive compute power with the best academic minds. A killer combo. Okay, so a handful of big companies and elite schools are running the AI show. You might be thinking, so what? Why should I care? Well, it turns out this matters a lot. The implications are actually huge, and they affect every single one of us. Okay, here's the heart of the problem. When you have a really small, really similar group of people building a technology that's going to change the world, well, their priorities, their values, even their blind spots, they all get baked right into the code. We're talking about the systems that might decide if you get a job or what kind of medical care you get. If the creators all come from the same place, the tech they build is going to see the world from that one narrow perspective. And this is a jaw-dropping example of what that looks like in practice. Just look at these numbers. Between 2000 and 2019, one company, Microsoft, published more top-tier AI research than every single Hispanic-serving institution in the U.S. put together. And they published over 12 times more than all the historically black colleges and universities. That is a staggering imbalance. So what are the risks when power gets this concentrated? Well, there are a bunch. You get a higher chance of biased AI systems, you get a less diverse group of people actually building the AI, the research starts to focus more on what makes a profit, not necessarily what's good for society. Science itself gets harder to check and reproduce, and it puts up these huge walls that stop startups and smaller players who might have the next brilliant idea from even getting in the game. But look, it's not all doom and gloom. There are ideas on the table to fix this. One of the big ones is something called a national research cloud. The idea is basically for the government to create this massive computing resource that academics from all kinds of schools, not just the elite ones, can tap into affordably, to give them the tools they need to compete and help level that playing field again. And really, that brings us to the final critical question that this whole thing leaves us with. With the future of AI being shaped by such a small, exclusive club, how do we, all of us, make sure that this incredibly powerful technology actually ends up working for the many and not just for the few?